Continuing our video from the last video, Unit 4-5, I want to go real quickly over Dred Scott again because this is very significant. This is a big deal. The Dred Scott decision is the beginning of the end, even though the beginning of the end has already started. This is really the moment where the North, the abolitionists, realize that they're never going to legally be able to solve the problem of slavery. And this is where the South basically digs their heels in the sand and says, we are not going to budge. We are not going to give up. Now, this court decision was reached by the Supreme Court, which was filled with Southern justices. So it's no surprise that the Southern justices ruled in favor of the slave states. Again, Scott's a slave, so he can't sue. Two, and that's enough right there to throw it out. But obviously, the court was going further. The court could have said, right there, we're done. Let's move on. You can't be free. But they wanted to make a statement. They wanted to control. This is almost like an activist judge type thing. These really are activist judges interpreting the law and determining the law, which is not what you're supposed to do if you're strictly interpreting the Constitution. But many of the activist judges today act like a de facto legislative branch. That's a problem today that people criticize. We can look at this case from right here and we can say activist judges are wrong. When we look at the Dred Scott decision, we can see these judges were activists. They were trying to interpret the law to basically create their own legislation from the bench. Create their own legislation, their own rules from the court. They're not supposed to do it. Laws are supposed to be decided by the legislative branch. And we can easily look at this decision and say, look, if you're just making a decision interpreting the law, then you stop at 1, or you at least stop at 2. But you don't go to step 3 and say the Missouri Compromise violates property rights, so it can't exist. You are activist judges. You are interpreting the law to legislate from the bench. That is wrong. Everyone agrees with it. But for whatever reason, when we look at decisions in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, where we clearly, again, see activist judges interpreting the law and legislating from the bench, we say, oh, no, that's okay, though. That's all right, because I agree with those views. You can't be an activist judge if you say something I don't like. But if you say something I like, then no, that's not the way it works. You have to be principled. You have to be consistent. If it's bad in this case, which it clearly is, then it's bad today. How about the Supreme Court and the judicial branch just look at the law and determine what the law says instead of interpreting and creating new law? But that's what we get. So from this decision, the new law says pretty much slavery is legal everywhere. And that's a big moment. And that's what the North's going to have to decide. What are we going to do? And then,
talk about your alternate backfire.
Dred Scott's like, I was just trying to get free. I didn't want to make slavery for everyone. I didn't want to expand slavery. I was just trying to get free. Thanks, Dred Scott. I didn't mean to. All right, so Lincoln-Douglas debates. Lincoln and Stephen Douglas are going to debate in Illinois to see who gets to be the state senator. Spoiler alert, Lincoln's going to lose. Now, Lincoln, during these debates, will say, a few rich slave owners have taken over the government. There is a slave power that secretly controls the government. A secret cabal of slave owners control the government. We will call it slave power. And that's like, we look at it back in history today and say, yeah, you're right. The slave owners united, they got a lot of power, and you can see through all these compromises, you can see through all these laws, you can see through the government decisions that the slave owners in the government had a lot of power, and they were making a lot of decisions. During that time period, and again, Lincoln lost this debate, and Lincoln lost that election, people were like, this dude's a conspiracy nut, slave power, what is he talking about? We're not voting for that guy. He thinks that a secret organization is secretly running the government. Yikes. Now, some people listening say, wait a second, there's something familiar about this. He says that all the laws, this is Lincoln, all the laws favor the South. They've taken over the government. These people, the real people, us people, we need to take the government back. Does that sound familiar? And people rightfully react like, this dude's a lunatic. He thinks that the slave owners and this conspiracy called slave power is really running the government secretly, and the people aren't in control. The people are in control, Abe. The people are voting. The people are making decisions. There isn't some secret. So during the time, people are like, you are a lunatic. Where have we heard this before? All the laws favor the elites. They have taken over the government. People need to take back the government. There is a secret deep state that is really running the government and not the people. And you're like, yeah, that's a conspiracy. Wait a second. Abe Lincoln was right. There was slave power, and there was a slave power conspiracy, and they were passing all the laws and making the Dred Scott decision and all these compromises. He was right. The people thought he was crazy then. Here we are again, like, What are we doing? Like, oh, you are crazy. The government's not run by the people. Listen to this lunatic. 50 years later, oh yeah, the government was definitely, there was people in the bureaucracy that are actually calling the shots and the people had no power. We'll see in 50 years what history looks like. But if you think Lincoln was right, which he was, then you might want to reevaluate the guy that's saying this now. It's like, all right, I know it sounds crazy, but maybe I shouldn't act like you're a lunatic, because in the end, Lincoln was actually right. But if you think Lincoln was a lunatic, if you think he was crazy, if you think he was absurd to think that there was this slave power conspiracy, then fine, you can be consistent and say it would be absurd to think that the government is controlled by the deep state or by bureaucracy or by a swamp or whatever, or lizard people that eat children. I get it. Like if you think a lunatic was dumb, if you think Lincoln's dumb, then you can think the guys now today are dumb. But if you honor Lincoln, if you agree with Lincoln, if you think Lincoln created great change that saved our country, then what about today? This is called cognitive dissonance, where an idea does not connect with what you believe, and you now have to make two things exist at the same time. Like, Lincoln's good, but today they're bad. The guys are bad, but doesn't it? If you like Lincoln, then you might have to agree with some of the points that are made today. Cognitive dissonance, and so your brain's going to have to work that one out. I don't know what to tell you. Rich slavers. Lincoln's going to lose this thing. But it's good for Lincoln because he loses the Senate, but will ultimately get nominated for president by the newly formed Republican Party. Their platform, that's the list of ideas for a political party. Every political party has a platform. The Republicans have a platform. The Democrats have a platform today. And individual candidates have their own platforms. This is their ideas. This is their beliefs. This is what they're going to fight for and try to pass once they get elected. What did the Republicans want? They want to stop the expansion of slavery, not in slavery. Stop the expansion, not in slavery. They want a transcontinental railroad, protective tariffs, enough already. And then they want to fight for the rights of immigrants. Lincoln gets elected and the South says, peace, deuces for seceding. We're out of here. We know what's coming. We know what's happening. Yeah. We're just going to start our own country. Well, you can't really do that. Well, we believe in the compact theory, so we are going to do that. Yeah, but you can't. So, okay, we'll figure it out. 1860, here's your election map. You'll see that, well, it looks like they won the same amount of states. Or what? How did the popular vote go? No one cares about the popular vote. It's about the electoral vote. And when we look at the electoral vote, when we look at the electoral college, Lincoln wins. And no one complains about the electoral college when your guy wins. When Lincoln wins, no one's like upset, like, oh, we got to get rid of the electoral college. Now, if Lincoln would have lost, this electoral college is terrible. Anyway, so Lincoln will win. Look at Ohio, 23 points. Come on, Ohio, looking good. What happened? Where did it all go wrong? It used to be number 3 in the country. Now we're like number 15 or something. Anyway, the South will secede, and you can see the states and their order of secession. Virginia will be first, and then everybody else kind of just follows along, and you will have the Confederate States of America inside America. And, well, we're going to have to sort this out in Unit 5. We're not to Unit 5 yet. We're going to have to do another video in Unit 4 to set the stage. And then, we'll have to go over the Civil War, and we'll have to do Reconstruction. Jefferson Davis will be named the president of the Southern states, the Confederacy, the Confederate States of America. All we ask is to be let alone. It's such a Southern way of saying it. If you're from the North, you'll say be left alone. But if you're ever a Confederacy of dunces, they're always saying, let him alone, let that boy alone, I say left because I'm not from the South. So anyway, that'll do it. Compromise of 1850. California, Washington, D.C., banning the slaveries, the Fugitive Slave Act, popular sovereignty, bleeding Kansas. What do we do with Kansas? I don't know. Let's just kill a bunch of people and then have a rigged election. Sounds like a plan. Dred Scott decision. I guess legally you could defend it. Say, well, technically it's property, and technically, I guess by the law, but it's a human being, folks. It's a human being. It's not property. I don't care anyway. But that's going to lead to the ultimate secession of the Southern states from the Union. So we'll talk about North versus South in the next video.